absolutely guarantee you that sooner or later I'm going to forget this bit's happening, and I'm going to be sat there bopping along to my own theme tune, looking like an absolute wallop. Thanks for coming and listening, watching, joining in, whatever you're going to do. As the balance of power on Alien Addicts has shifted, and there is a new alpha male on the team, Daddy's got to take care of some business because Ollie never does it. There's a patron, so you can go sign up to the patron, come and help the show out, help everything else that's going on here. We're going to try and get through as many like comments and stuff if anyone comes up in the chat with like anything interesting to say about what we're talking about tonight, or something that could veer us off in a different way. I'll be keeping an eye on the chat. Obviously, I can't see all the chat, but if you super chat, I'll definitely see it and we'll definitely talk about it. So yeah, money brings attention. My co-host, he's not my lover. Don't talk about his mother. It's Black Star Paranormal.
Money talks. Money talks.
How you doing, buddy?
Does. Good, man. What's up?
I'm good, mate. It's good to have you here from the beginning of the show, rather than like ducking in the dark.
I had an opportunity that weekend, and that was the priority.
Yeah.
So,
you do cool stuff like the. I reckon the last 2 weekends you've had. I joked with my friend saying like last weekend you were like the most Dave thing I could think you could be doing, and then you followed this week up with like the second most Dave thing I think you could be doing.
Yeah, well, that's life, man. Life's good. It's all about how you approach it. It's all about connections, relationships, and friends. Enjoy that time. All the rest of the stuff's just nonsense.
And speaking of nonsense, I was thinking of, I've done a little list. I won't go through the list and tell people what the list is because that'll be spoilers, of like different subjects and things that I think we can do little episodes on for Musty Audio. So if doing this, yeah, like no, I wouldn't say. The thing is, all I do is spend my week watching videos about on YouTube or Rumble, and then listen to podcasts about people talking about stupid things. So what I might as well do is theme it. So then I'm helping myself for Sunday's show by what I'm listening to. So I have listened to far too many shows about shadow people this week, like far too many, including something that unfortunately I forgot the name of it because I could have warned people. I thought it was a documentary. It wasn't a documentary. It was a mockumentary that I think was done on the budget of about $7. And it had all of the acting skills of a homemade porn film with a storyline. It was truly, truly terrible.
Was it on Pornhub?
No, it wasn't. No, I actually went to the. I mean, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't say I went and bought it. Obviously, I didn't buy it. Who buys things? I went to the effort of torrenting it, at least.
I buy things, man. I buy things. I support the artists.
Yeah, well, I feel that as soon as the maybe this isn't how karma works, but as soon as the universe supports me, I'll support everybody else.
Maybe the universe wants you to take that first step.
Maybe it should.
Yeah, everything's held off. All your glory's held off because you won't tip the waitress $100.
Oh Jesus, God, you're right. As a Brit, like that makes me feel physically ill. The idea of tipping staff. It's just not. It's not a thing here. It's not like if in the event of like a 16-person, like a 16-person dinner, where everyone gets incredibly drunk, and somebody and so like say the bill comes to like, I don't know, £390.
Mm-hmm.
Begrudgingly we will go round up to 400.
But, hey man, what different cultures,
Yeah, so yeah, I I've never had any. I've had various like paranormal encounters before, but nothing with like shadow people. Yeah, yeah. But so when I started reading the like different accounts and listening to different accounts of people, I expected to not think it was nonsense, because I don't really think anything is nonsense. But I didn't think I'd come out of this by believing that this might be a thing so much as I do.
What was the turning point for you?
It was the consistency of accounts, and there was a strange one, because I've seen lots of like YouTube videos of shadow people and stuff like that, and I think lots of them are shadows, you know.
Yeah.
But the consistency of the stories of people that were saying no, we're saying shadow people because they were dark figures, but they were solid mass with like three-dimensional objects. And that really surprised me, like the consistency of stories of these like three-dimensional objects, of like sticking heads around corners and just appearing in the corners of rooms and stuff like that.
It's funny you say that. So I think I'd said it on Ollie's show months ago that Black Star was having something developed, like our own, paranormal hunting equipment. And while it's still being developed and we're still working on the paperwork and stuff, and parts that are being ordered, Max is making it. For Max that was on that is a contractor for several aerospace companies.
Well, Max has been a guest on Must See Audio on the like the audio only podcast, so people listening to this will have definitely heard Max before.
Nice guy. He's brilliant. He's brilliant. He's a friend of mine, and he's recruited other people that are brilliant in their own fields that work at these similar places that have similar interests, but again, don't go mainstream with it because it would, it hurt them.
Yeah.
It hurt their career. And I can't still talk about, like, I can't talk about what it is, but it is actually based off, like, it is a piece of equipment that should potentially help prove or disprove shadow people. I don't even know if that's the right word to use it either. Like that's what it's based towards. That's what the theory is based towards. And they're getting consulting from an optical engineer about part of it. It's smart people stuff way above me, man. I don't know. That's not my area. But it's funny. It's funny that today's show about that, and I actually just talked to him yesterday about it. So
I think one of the interesting things is kind of on topic, kind of off topic. One of the interesting things when I talked to Max when he was talking about like various projects and things he's worked on was that he brought up the you're working on a project and all of a sudden, oh look, it's another Osiris project, or it's this, and it's we have another project that's named after another Egyptian god. I think it's interesting that somebody like that, which is in the position he's in, that it shows that those people that, although they're working away in lab coats doing these things, it doesn't go unnoticed.
Max would notice.
Yeah.
The other people he works with do not notice. When you deal with like a bunch of engineers, they're a bunch of high-level engineers, physicists, things like that, professional science people, they usually will put a huge distance between themselves and any of that occult literature. All of them, that's just nonsense and hogwash, right? But Max and some of his friends, they're a little different, and they catch those things. And he's right that those names get recycled. I mean, somebody probably thinks they're cool, but it makes you wonder. It makes me wonder.
Yeah, there does seem to be something like deeply. There's some sort of deeply occult foundations to that stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If you look into like JPL Labs, which Parsons is, that whole thing, he was way into the occult, man, way into the occult, and he's the father of the whole kit and caboodle as far as NASA goes. And he was way into that with, you can Google that, his dark practitioners, and how and where GPL Labs was formed out in California, and how they pick the sites and their rituals. And it's, it's always stranger. People always say, reality stranger than fiction. Fact is far more bizarre than fiction. It really is. It's kind of like when you find out things that are going on in the world, and they're always worse than you thought they were.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's always worse. I think the same thing with this too. It's
weird when you get the government documents will turn up with these things in. Just not many. It's not like it's not like every piece of paper that's going through Congress has got something like this on. But now and again, you get these little bits pop up where they will talk about things that are off world or outer dimensional, and it's. You see that's where I sort of stem with this sort of thing, is that it's there is the veil of reality is thinner than we like to think it is.
Or maybe they're just a part of it we just pretend to ignore. There was a time, I mean, honestly, not long ago, when people took these types of paranormal things far more seriously than we do today.
I think even in the 60s, even like back in the 50s and 60s, you look at that, the whole New Age movement of that time, it was all acid fairies and can trees feel pain. There was a huge naturalist movement back then that's kind of all been wiped. I take it all been wiped away by technology, really. Technology, and it's in the same way as we bury our heads in phones now to to isolate ourselves even more. It makes no difference. We were still burying our heads in whatever the pop culture of the time was back then. It was just the beginning of this like attention sponge that we created.
Yeah, if anything, the constant media, I think, has shortened that attention span, so it's easier for them to slip all these things by us. Whereas before, you had more time to think about the news that was getting reported. Even though I've never believed it's ever been honest. It's always filtered by some powers that be, whatever. But
even spin, that's the thing. It doesn't even need to be like a nefarious that we can't allow this sort of thing through. If you depend on what newspaper or what news channel you watch, you're gonna get it with that spin. Even independent media. Do you know what I mean? If you're listening to some guy that's on a YouTube channel on talk about UFOs, and they talk about this whole like the China balloon that's come over the US, he is going to have a conspiratorial view than the Tim Pool of the or whoever the next political commentator you can think of is.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is if you read something and you feel an emotional charge, it was meant to happen.
Reason.
There's a reason for it. It was meant to happen. It's by design.
You said that to me probably over a year ago now, and it's always stuck in my head. Like ever since you said it, I think I genuinely, not to steal what I think is quite a smart thing to say. I think it's quite a valuable thing to keep regurgitating to people as well. Well, we just live in a world of rage.
Well, it's one of the first things they teach you when you go through the classes for the CIA.
So, you want to get involved in sort of Black Star Paranormal, doing whatever Black Star is going to end up doing. As far as I'm concerned, like Black Star might actually just be like the CIA's X-File wing now. So
it's a cool name, right? It's a good name. Yeah. Yeah. I had to fight hard to get that name. It's better than Albatross. Can't go with Albatross again, guys.
Yeah, always with the birds. Come on.
Always with the birds. How about Osiris? We've used that.
Yeah,
we've used that too many times.
Too many Egyptian gods. I keep telling you. But have you ever had anything that's
sexual,
like sexual, or on par with a shadow person or paranormal experience like that?
Oh yeah. Yes.
I know. I'd like to talk about it.
Oh. You weren't clear on that. That's a bizarre question. Yeah, actually I have. But I thought you knew that. Don't do drugs, kids. I'm like, shit. All right, Lee, you okay, buddy?
Try to be cool. Try to be a host.
I'm gonna have to carry this now. Oh man, Lee's mind's starting to go. Oh. No, I did. I had one that was. I've had a couple. One of the more interesting ones was at a large hospital that was doing like a fledgling open ghost hunt type thing. It's a not decommissioned. That's the wrong word. And it was kind of abandoned. Yeah, it's called an abandoned hospital that a gentleman bought that I know, and he fixed the roof, got everything, cleaned it up. It's kind of amazing. They've been filming some movies and things there. It's what he uses it for, but he also opens it up for ghost hunting. He owns a couple things that are like other hospitals, and yeah, so we got to do a tour. Me and Dio from Black Star was there, and he saw a shadow person with night vision. We were using night vision. I was using thermal, and I saw a similar thing with the thermal, and yeah, there was no one there. There wasn't even a room there. In fact, we saw a thing walk into a wall, and we thought it was a person. We thought it was someone with our group. We actually thought it was a woman that had come with us, and she wasn't. She was in a different room. So we're like, what? I mean, I saw that. And he's like, I saw that. It's like, nah. And we walked down the hallway, and sure enough, it was just a wall. And we were like, wow, that was weird. And then talking to the person we're there with, that used to be the hallway to the other part of the building that was torn down, and they just sealed it up. Yeah, and there's only 20 people in the building. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, that was it. It was interesting. It was interesting. There's been other things, but that was cool because there was a witness, and part of the technology that Black Star is working on right now, that particular instance, the particular equipment we were using, is what's fed into the development of hopefully our new research apparatus. Mm-hmm. Like the things that may confirm, you know what I mean? So we're going to see.
Do you think there's a problem with maybe paranormal equipment? Like,
yeah,
things like spirit boxes and stuff like that. I can't help think that some of that stuff is built in case they don't get anything back. It's built with a return in mind, no matter what the situation.
Yeah, so like paranormal equipment in general.
Just quickly, I'd like to address this. Yeah. You see, Ollie's not here because YouTube channels, it turns out, work very much like 80s movie The Highlander. And if you simply cut the head off the host, you get to inherit his channel. That's exactly what happens.
That's it. It's exactly it.
Yeah.
Way to give him the technical details, Lee. Really break it down for him.
Yeah. That's it. All I need to do now is that I'm gonna try and find PewDiePie next.
Yeah.
Work my way up the chain.
Good thing I'm hiding. I don't even know what paranormal equipment. Yeah, some of them, like proximity sensors, are made out of like proximity sensor doorbells. So one of the things Black Star we've done is we actually bought a bunch of technology from all these other people. I sent it to I did, and I sent it to my engineering friends, and they've taken it all apart. Like, they read the codes from the boards, the chips. They're like, this is a doorbell from China. This is this is nonsense. We could build this better and cheaper. And that's a huge chunk of what we've been doing. We're like, you haven't been doing anything. No, it's not true. I've been buying things as they come into stock, sending them to my friends that work down there, and they're tearing them apart and like, oh yeah, we can make this way better. That's a big chunk of what's going
on. Is there anything you can give away about how that technology is going to be different?
Ours, one, it'll actually work. It won't be a doorbell. Some of the other things, no. Like, there's our first thing that's coming out will be patent pending. Mm-hmm. So it's just not, yeah. But as far as the technology goes, man, most of that stuff out there is just nonsense. Mm-hmm. Like, if you get they have these different rainbow-like tails that are proximity sensors. Mm-hmm. They're proximity doorbell sensors. They're like $10, and all they do is pop it out of the little plastic thing. They put it in some other wrapping, wire a light to the alarm sensor. Instead of it ringing a bell, it brings this light. Mm-hmm. And now they're going to charge you $100. Wow. For something that took them, 4 minutes. A lot of that is
grift, isn't there? So much grift.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Like, The most legit thing that I found someone doing, and it's a guy in the UK. He makes, or doesn't make, he buys older digital cameras with a certain diode in it, or not a diode, receptor for the camera, certain digital receptor, whatever. He removes the IR cut glass, replaces it with standard cut glass that of same dimension, so it doesn't mess with the focus. And now you have a full spectrum camera, because the IR lenses in the older cameras, what they did is they just filtered out all the other spectrums and wavelengths you didn't want to see. Most of them, anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're getting into multidimensional things that are operating in a different frequency or a different field or different vibration, whatever, maybe that can be seen in a different light that we can't see with the naked eye, because we really can't see that much of the electromagnetic spectrum.
Isn't something like 8% or something?
Yeah, it's
tiny.
It's very small.
Yeah,
that's what she said. But so like those cameras were legit, and there's other people, so like that's probably not going to be a direction we go, but we looked about buying those sensors and diodes in bulk and being able to put them in, but then you have to start writing code, and like the first iteration of a piece of equipment we had was going to be so horrendously expensive, no one was going to buy it. Like, just at profit margin for us plus shipping, I mean, you would be like $1,800 in, and people aren't buying those things. Yeah, so it's, yeah, most of it out there is just kind of garbage, and it's garbage for a reason. You know, most of the people, like, you see these, you know, I'm not trying to bag, but I'm going to. A lot of the ghost hunting paranormal investigator teams.
Yeah.
It's a hobby on the weekends, and that's cool. It's my hobby.
Lots of it's not even that. Lots of it's just like reality TV. I remember sat next to some guy in a bar, or like TT week on the Isle of Man, and we got talking. And I was like, "What do you do?" And he was from America, and we had a chat. Turns out he was one of the writers for Zach Bragan's thing. He said, yeah, it's all bullshit. He said, all bullshit. He said, it's him, and he said there's 3 other guys write the episodes.
He's doing a terrible job.
I know.
Yeah, so it's pretty interesting, you know, because I've done to these different paranormal things before, and I think a lot of these people that are on teams or groups, one, it's their hobby. It's something to get out, and they chase the bizarre and the unknown, which I definitely believe is there. Full force, it's there. And I've noticed that they'll get something will happen. Truly unexplainable and profound will happen to them, and that's it'll either light the fire so they go deeper and kind of get obsessed, or they're like, all right, I was looking for something and I found it. So it's interesting.
A question from Rican here.
What's up, Rican?
Black Star, I think they detect signals from cameras, which is why they avoid it. Is there a camera that you would suggest that doesn't?
No, man, I'm not a camera expert. I got to be honest, when it comes to the technical side of this stuff, I leave it to my friends who actually know about it. I don't. Mm-hmm. Like, we talk about the general concept that our theory is that we're trying to test and figure out ways to test it. Beyond that, no, man, I just kind of went through eBay, and honestly, most of that stuff you're just taking a gamble with.
Yeah,
it's a total gamble. You know, I got stuff that was just like, yeah, well, I got had. There you go. You know, you just kind of take it, see if you can get a refund, which you never can, and you roll on. Yeah.
I thought the I mean, just to full disclosure, I think this is nonsense, but I thought some of the pictures people were doing with that like anime app on TikTok was interesting for a minute. There was this thing where you could take pictures of rooms, take pictures of yourself, it would turn you into an anime character, but people were taking pictures of rooms, and it was inserting people in certain rooms where there wasn't any people there. And it wasn't like it was just going, oh, that's a share, I'll make it a person. There was like nothing there. And I did it in my house. So I took pictures in every single room of my house. One being this room. This room is directly upstairs from me right now is my son's room. And every room in the house was clean of manga aliens from manga ghosts. Apart from this room, where there was a blonde-haired woman looking out of that curtain. And well, you see, it was mangaed though, so just because she looked hot in the photograph doesn't mean that she was like some sort of sexy manga lady. Might have been like the the old hag or something like that. But then I went upstairs because that freaked me out a little bit. I thought that's weird. Went upstairs, did the other rooms upstairs, and she was then looking out of what would be that window, but upstairs in the room above me. Nah, I thought that was odd.
She might be there. So I bought I bought one of those Kinects viewfinder cameras that do the little stick figures that render the image with the IR. Have you seen those from the Xbox? Yeah, and they rewrite the software and put it on a tablet, and you hunt ghosts with it. So I bought one of those, and that's a very interesting piece of kit. And my people took it apart, and they're like, "Yeah, it's going to be too much to make it," like, because they're buying all the people that are doing it are buying all the used and decommissioned Kinect bars, right? Just because the technology in them is so advanced and it's open. It's really sad that like if you're looking to buy a piece of technology, buy one of those.
Yeah.
Buy one of those because there's only so many of them, and then they're going to be gone. That's what I would buy. I wouldn't necessarily buy a digital camera. I'd buy a Kinect because I've used that and it's phenomenal.
Well, my a friend of mine, she, in fact, long-time listeners to Musty Audio will know that she was a co-host on Musty Audio for a while. Rianne Evans, who's a local radio DJ over here. If you want to listen to Manx local radio for some unknown reason, she does the Late Show. Go and listen to it; she's really good. They had a ghost team doing a ghost investigation in the radio station when she was there, and they had one of the Kinects like strapped to a like some tablet, probably Android tablet with a battery pack attached to it. And she was saying, "Yeah," she said, "I realized it was a Kinect, like a video game thing." She said, "I don't know much about video games." She said, "Not seen us like or with our hands and stuff." She said, "It's funny how every single ghost they happen to see was on a chair, almost like that thing is expecting to see a person on a chair all the time."
I don't know about theirs. Ours doesn't do that. But if there's like an assemblage, you can tell like of boxes of something human shaped, depending on distance and what
it'll try and make it a person.
It'll try and make it a person. That's the thing. Yeah. So like same thing with that. Like we were talking, like you're talking spirit boxes, right? People love them. People hate them.
Kind of a dog. How dogs make love, isn't it? Depends on the shape. We'll try and make it another dog.
Try and make it happen. I mean, it's going to happen. Yeah. So it's kind of like the ghost boxes and things like that, right? Some people love them. Some people hate them. I think that they can be just fine if you incorporate it in the right type, like the Estes method. Are you familiar with the Estes method?
No.
Yeah. So I think they name it stuff like this to be more legit or sound better. It's the Estes method. What it is you put someone in headphones like this, like good headphones that they can't hear outside noise. You plug it up to a random word generator or an AM that's scanning. You put them in a separate room. Really what you're doing is you're creating a medium, right? You're creating a medium, and these people are going to almost channel the answers. It's not so much the technology as it is them. That's
is this where you've got somebody isolated and somebody asking questions?
Correct. In a different room.
Yeah.
And then the person who has the stuff on in a different room who cannot hear, their only role is just to call out loud words. And if you've ever seen it, and maybe it is happenstance, right? Maybe it's luck. Maybe it's personally, I don't believe in any of that. I don't believe in coincidence or luck or any of that. But I have been a party to things that were incredibly accurate, unbelievably accurate to like how many people are in the room? 10. Whoa. One person getting kind of confrontational and had been from the beginning. And, the guy's like, "Well, what would you do to me?" And the person in the other room calls out, he's like, "I'll humiliate you." That was an interesting string of words.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And especially when you know the other person, right? You know that they're not trying to play into anything there, and they just come out after, like an hour of like, "Oh, okay, so what was that?" That's interesting. I find the most interesting results come with a human component. Right? That's just what I believe.
Oh yeah, as like a human component, as like a human, a human being the device of like transmission.
Yeah. And I think with that equipment, I mean, like, I'm not gonna like bag on anyone's stuff, but there's a human component I think is the best. And unfortunately, those who are like many of these groups move more and more towards technology. So they're like, well, this way we don't have human interference. We're going to measure these things, within the physical realm, within the laws of physics, that how we understand them. The problem is, like, I think they were doing a test with AI, and they, lobbed around, and they had AI calculate the angle, trajectory, distance, speed, weight, delivery of joules on impact, all that kind of stuff. And they're like, wow, it could do that. And then it asked it to extrapolate the physical principles it used to come up with that. And there were like 3 more than what we're aware of. And now you're like, well, what 3 are those? The AI doesn't understand what you're asking. So I just think that there's more going on. There's far more going on. And like we said very early on, everything's, the reality is always stranger. Things are always worse, or it's always more bizarre than you ever thought it could be.
That goes well with Gustav's comment for you, actually. And he said, Dave, what's your main theory?
I don't have one. If I had one, that would mean I've excluded all other possibilities, and I haven't.
Let's boil it down to a top 3.
For what? Like shadow people, or like the universe?
I think, with shadow people, I know, like I said, I was hoping we were going to get more stories for this, but we haven't. But I think the shadow people, paranormal investigations, anything that's, even things like the Watchers, people do that, the Smiler Man, the Hat Man, that sort of stuff. These paranormal interactions that people have with something we can't quite put our finger on what it is or why it's there. I think they're kind of, if not in the same box, they're certainly from the same neighborhood.
So Gustav, I think I can round it out like this. Like, I do have kind of a general overall theory. I've said it on Ollie's before. Like, I think many of these things, that whether it be lights in the sky, ships, shadow people, whatever, right? Whatever. There's such alien concepts that they're hard for us to wrap. And we as humans, we love to put things in categories. We love to put labels on things. We love to know what they are. Order, category, genus, phylum. We want the whole thing. But that's fine if we believe we understand the nature. Like, I look at all these things, and here's my whole theory. A whale, a jellyfish, and an octopus all live in the ocean, but it doesn't mean they're the same thing, right? But they're all in the ocean.
Yeah,
not the same thing. That's my theory about the paranormal and crypto and everything. Like, we're desperate to lump it. Like, it's all this, or it's all that, or it's maybe everybody is right. It's just all in the deep end of the pool.
All of those things.
Yeah, it's all of those things.
Do you think that would explain why these things seem to happen to a certain type of person?
Yeah, I'd had a conversation like this with someone once, and the gist of it was they had difficulty believing, like, well, I've never had anything happen to me. And we were with someone who's had some interesting things happen to them. And there's not a great difference between them. Not really. People are people. And the only thing that would like resonate with me, and I told him, I was like, maybe nobody's interested in you. Maybe for whatever reason, like we don't understand. Maybe it's a genetic makeup. Maybe it's a mutation that's in the brain. Maybe there really are people that are children of the gods, or you know what I mean? Like, what if all those ancient stories are true? They did breed with man, and whoever has that little chunk of DNA written in, they're either more susceptible, or maybe their magnetic resonance is higher, and so other things are able to see it, and they come like, "Ooh, what's that?" maybe it's because those people are light in the darkness to those things. Not saying that they're from darkness, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, they're just a beacon. They can see them
easily. Maybe they don't even notice anyone else. Maybe they only notice certain people.
The Shining.
The Shining, or like Stir of Echoes is probably my favorite one, if you've ever seen that movie. Kevin Bacon. It's very good. It's about a guy who has like a psychic incidents by happenstance, and it it haunts him. And then his son also has like psychic lights, like he can see. And there's a character in the movie that explains it like, people with this gift, it's like having a flashlight in the dark. Some people's flashlights, the battery's low and it's kind of intermittent and you can only see glimpses. Some people have powerful flashlights. But if you're able to see in that darkness, then everything else in the darkness can see where that light's coming from, right? Just like if you drop bright lights in the abyss, things come swimming around to see what the hell is that. They're not used to it. That's, again, my ocean analogy, right? If you take something that makes light deep enough, all the things from the dark come and check it out.
Yeah, I get it. I think it would be, when you look at things like Montauk Project and stuff like that, it would explain it would explain whether we're using certain targets, if any of that's real. It would be very valuable. Can you imagine, right? If there was something akin to a Stranger Things scenario, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How if you did have like I'm not saying about like telekinesis and stuff like that, because we're talking superpowers here, but if you had something that could if you had someone that could connect better with the other side, or wherever it is, or wherever, like between realms, that'd be unbelievably valuable.
Horrible?
No, but if you were a government probe, those people would be unbelievably valuable.
Maybe if they could control it, right?
Yeah. I'm
Otherwise,
just because I'm kind of moderating my own chat here. I'm just gonna say to old Matty Miller, because the chat was going great before your man turns up. Got a funny feeling I know who he is. To be perfectly honest, I don't think his name's Matt.
His name's Matty.
Maybe. Just fucking. It's all right. Doesn't matter. There's Goofon's never been on Musty Audio. That's why he's not here.
No, but like, again, it's to me, it's just the ocean analogy, right? Like, so say if you did say some of these people that are more susceptible, like when you look at cases, whether you believe the people or not, or you get like, everybody has a ghost story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has one. Everyone knows someone that has one. Everyone's had something strange happen. Like, it's not an uncommon phenomenon. And it's interesting with the level of skepticism it's approached with, because if you were to take, not all, right? Like, some people are just out of their minds and it is what it is. But, or maybe the paranormal and supernatural like someone who's crazy more than they'd like someone who's sane. Who knows? But I've seen people convicted of murder on the testimony of a couple people with solid backgrounds. Whereas I've seen a couple people with solid backgrounds tell you they've seen a light in the sky, or they had this paranormal incidents happen to them. And everyone's just like, nah, I don't believe that guy. He's like, we've sent people to electric chairs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Based on the word of someone else. It's interesting. The reaction is interesting from people too. It's, people want to believe, and I think they're entertained, but when confronted with the possibility of the reality of it, they get twitchy. Like where I live in the United States, like we don't officially have mountain lions or cougars here, but I know people that have seen them and found tracks, right? Obviously they're here. And when they tell people that, including state officials, they're like, no, that can't be. It can't be. Why? Well, I haven't seen it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when was the last time you were out in the woods? Well, I have a desk job and paperwork. All right. Like, there's no point arguing with that. You just kind of roll on. So, that's it.
What you had another good story as well that I wanted to bring up tonight, because I think this was better than when you told me before. The one about the was it at sea?
What's that?
Because that was really fucking creepy.
Which one?
The was it the I don't want to spoil what the story was. It was one of the first things you told me when we met. When you saw you saw two things out in the sea.
The people on the beach. Yeah, I mean, that was weird. That was weird. I actually told Ollie just about that because he and I were, I wasn't FaceTime. I think we were like video chatting on Facebook or whatever. And that was during the lockdown. A bunch of the properties in Florida and stuff, like all these people canceled on the beach. And so my wife and I, like we had our kids out of school at that time, and we didn't want to wear them anyway. Yeah, so we rented this house. Is a nice section of the beach. It's in St. Augustine, Florida. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. It was awesome beach house. Had a huge chunk of like beach to itself and its own walkway, and just the only thing around you were other big beach houses, right? Like these other monstrosities. And then way down the beach was apartments, or not apartments, maybe hotels. Hell, I don't know. We didn't go down there. And we just kind of stayed to our little corner, and nobody was there. Like nobody. It was wild. Because at that time, everyone was freaking out. No one was going anywhere. And so we're like, we could score this deal, and we did. A friend of us who they own it or manage it. I don't know. It was a really good deal. And yeah, so one night anyway, I walk out to the beach because I want to look at the ocean and the stars with my night vision, because most of the houses behind us are out. And to be out there and be that dark, you know what I mean, is pretty awesome. And the night vision, looking at the stars and stuff, are pretty awesome. It was windy. The clouds were sparse, but you could see obviously the sky around them, and the clouds look cool and nice night vision, and good night vision as well. Walked down to the beach. Tides were way up, and at the particular time of year and on that side, it was rough seas. And my phone's exploding. Sorry. It's rough seas. Like so much so that if I were to step foot in it, and I did, like as the water would come up, I could feel that sand getting sucked by my feet, and it just kind of like pulling me. And I'm a large man, and I was like, oh yeah, and I'm messing around with that. So I just kind of stayed up more on the beach, and there wasn't a lot of it. I'm just looking around. Granted, I'm not looking around with a flashlight. I'm blacked out. House behind us is blacked out, except for I think one of the bedroom windows were open or whatever. The living room, I think it was the upstairs living room, was open with a light, because my wife was putting the kids down for bed. And I'm just kind of grazing the beach, and I look down and I see this, obviously a woman, because the wind's blowing hard, and whatever she's wearing, it's obviously a woman, and her kids playing in the swells, the crashing, the breaking of the waves. And yeah, I was like, oh, that's interesting. And she kind of whipped her head to, like, I could tell that movement. And I was like, ooh, well, and I immediately look away because I was like, oh, I don't want to be a creeper, even though I was obviously being a creeper. And then as I'm looking around, the like hair on the back of my neck starts to stand up. I start to feel uneasy. And as I processed it later, I understand why I was feeling that way at the time. But then I looked back, and the kid is standing in the ocean with the waves crashing around, waves that would pull my ass out to sea. He's just kind of hanging out there, and they're both looking at me. And I'm just like, nah, I'm fine. I'm armed. Like, I'm trained for various situations. It's a fucking woman and a kid. And I had a thought echo in the back of my head. It's like, yeah, that's how everyone who disappeared on Missing 411 probably felt right before they got eaten. And I was like, oh, yeah. So I turned around and I ran like a scared little girl. I think it's like 150 yards or something to the house on this little deck. I was just hauling ass, man. Went inside, locked the door, closed the blinds. My wife's like, what's going on? And I was like, I don't know. And I told her, and she's like, oh, that's silly. And then later in the middle of the night, I woke up, and I was like, how did they know I was looking at them? You know what I mean? How did they know I was looking at them? And I woke her up. And I was like, honey, how did they know I was looking at them? She's like, what do you mean? It's like, I had my PS14s on. How did they know I wasn't putting out any light? How did they know I was looking at them? There's no lights on the beach. And she's just like, wait a minute, what? She's versed in these things, and that doesn't make any sense. I was like, it doesn't. But they were both looking at me.
Yeah, because I look at the neighbors all the time, and they never see me.
Oh, they're pretending not to see you. They're hoping that'll end the fetish and you'll go back in as soon as possible. They realize if they play into it, you just continue. Yeah.
No, it's a wild story, and that's
it's unsettling. It's an unsettling story, especially when you're like, it's funny now, right? And my friends know, and they think it's funny. But then I was terrified. I was terrified like I've rarely ever been, which is strange. And again, I mean, I'm armed. I have a gun on me. I know how to use that gun. I have night vision. Fuck, I'm not putting off any light. Like, you shouldn't be able to see my ass coming.
It's a woman and a child
on a dark beach, and a woman and a child down the beach are like, and they were probably, I feel like it was further away, but the adrenaline and the fear make it sing, and the depth perception on those things, it will throw you.
Were they on the beach or in the sea?
She was on the beach. He was in the water. He was playing in like the crash of the waters, and she was up because it was a short amount of beach. It was probably like from the dune down 6 or 7 feet to the high tide mark, right? And so she was kind of up halfway on the dune, probably getting hit with the big waves. And he was out there, man, like waist deep, chest deep, just like splashing, jumping, playing, he was having a great time. And I was just like, oh, that's, and part of the thought in my head, now that I think about it, was like, oh man, if my kids weren't so small, I'd bring them down here, but that's probably a bad idea at night. And I'm like, that damn thing almost carried me away.
Well, you see, that's what I was going to point out as well. Like, it's such an unnatural thing to do. To put your kids in danger like that. You just wouldn't at that time of night on your own. You just wouldn't do it.
Well, I don't know. Women,
I don't think
maybe she's off her rocker, man.
Yeah, maybe. It's. I mean, I don't know if you've. Have you ever been in the situation where you've maybe when you had your first child? I don't know if this is something everybody does, but and maybe slightly different with me, because it only happened when I split up with my son's mum, and like around in the first times where it was just me and him in the house on our own. I remember sitting there thinking, oh, I could have done with getting beers tonight because somebody was coming around. And I thought, I'll just go get some. I put my coat on. I went to walk out the door. I thought, no, I won't, because there's a sleeping child upstairs. And the idea that you could that sort of that maternal pull or a paternal pull to go like, I can't even fucking leave the house right now. That would be like the worst possible thing a human being to do, would be to leave your child in the house on their own. But to do like, what's the second worst? Probably go down to the beach and let them play in the sea in the middle of the fucking night.
Not only that, it was a rough sea, man. Those winds were whipping, that the tides were whipping. Like, we never really got in the beach when we were down there, just because the tides were so very strong. Like the kids, we kind of kept them up in the sand right where that is, and we always sitting close to them. But yeah, I'm a very good swimmer, and I wasn't just taking off into that sea, man. I wasn't doing that. That would be dumb.
It was easy to get down to the beach.
Yeah, it was about 150 yards. Like, it's a walkway. It was about 150 yards.
Yeah.
I was taken aback with how long it was, but again, we were on it, like, I don't know if it is technically Saint, whatever. But it's right there at it. It was just very long. Like, it's all a bunch of these McMansion type places. You know what I mean? And they were on fire sale, or not fire sale, but like fire sale for rent, because everyone had canceled their bookings because of, the plague that year.
Yeah.
And the kids were out early because all the schools shut down. And we're just like, well, let's go take a couple weeks and go down to the beach, I guess, whatever. Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, it was uncomfortable. Even the whole time at the beach afterwards, like, we've, done this obviously before, and I like going down to the beach at night. I like sitting there. I like watching the ocean with the night vision. I like looking at the sky. It's super peaceful. And because you're blacked out like that, especially in areas like that where there's not a lot of ambient light, at least from the houses or whatever, people could just walk right by you. You know what I mean? It's you're just kind of doing your own thing, and it's a nice world to. For me, it's peaceful. Whatever. For me, it's peaceful. I didn't have much of that though, man. Like we were always in by dark doors locked.
It's interesting though, isn't it? Like you bring the missing 411 thing up, and that's, I mean, it's fascinating in itself. But in a way, it's kind of like it's a given. The 411 thing is interesting. So if you get people, it's obvious something strange has happened. If you have like a load of hunters that go out one of them just disappears in thin air. They're all experienced hunters, all experienced woodsmen. That's strange. It just makes you wonder how many people just disappear like that in real life that we never hear about. It's just that one day they're on a milk carton, the next minute they're gone, and there's a grieving family somewhere thinking that something happened. Just the other day in the UK, there's been a woman that went missing walking a dog, and there's a river there, but I mean, the police report says that they think she fell into the river and got swept down, but it said that she could swim. To the best of my knowledge, they don't think the dog went in after her, which I feel is something the dog would probably do. If the owner went in, but that woman has disappeared off the face of the earth. It just makes you wonder how many other times this happens. In people's houses, maybe with people on the way to work. And a body doesn't turn up somewhere because it's not a standard like missing persons case.
Little we know, humans are actually just livestock for some other thing. Keeps us there, keeps us happy, and picks us off when it chooses.
Well, I mean, if that's the case, there's not many of them munching on us.
Maybe unless delicacy.
Unless they're really small. Maybe that we're like elk. Maybe like one of us can feed like a whole family for a year.
Maybe they did hunt us extensively, and that was almost the last. That was the last reset.
Maybe
they built up to substantial numbers, and they culled it back. They're waiting now.
Oh my God! Wouldn't that be awful if we'd just been seasoned? That's all that was over the last 2 years.
It's kind of flattering.
Three good doses of seasoning.
Yeah. Getting prepped, getting the meat prepped. It's like marinade, alien marinade, shadow people marinade.
Yeah. I think there's something. I think there's something to it. I think there's something to these things being a malevolent force.
They do seem that way.
Yeah, they don't. It doesn't seem to be. There's because you get like good abductee stories. You get the Space Brother stories. You get those sort of things. You don't get. Oh, I met a nice shadow person story, or this entity came to me at night and woke me up, and it said, "Oh, everything's going to be all right. I was just going to read you a bedtime story. Would you like a coffee?" It doesn't happen.
Ollie has a good shadow person story as well.
Oh, does he? I wish. I didn't know that.
Yeah, we'll have to press him for that.
You mean I purposely put this show together on his YouTube channel, and he didn't even say it to me. Absolute shithead.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. It is a good one though. It is a good one. I would think most people would, not most, but a lot of people, if you talk to them and you get them in a situation where they're comfortable, they'll confess, every now and then I thought I've seen something out of the corner of my eye before something, but it was just me playing tricks. Maybe you've, because when you ask follow-up questions to us, like, hey, was your heart beating? It's like, yeah, well, maybe the adrenaline was pumping, maybe your blood and your fight or flight started to kick in. You're like, okay,
that's weird though. It's a weird feeling. Yeah.
Why? Like when I was on the beach, why was I afraid of some woman and a little girl?
Yeah.
There's
certain places.
I was.
Certain places do it. I know I've said it definitely on Ollie's show before when we've been talking about paranormal stuff. Mm-hmm. My old band practice rehearsal room.
Mm-hmm.
That place was a soundproofed sound studio. It was supposed to be for filming, but enough filming didn't go on.
Did they have a drain in the floor?
do you know what? It wouldn't have worked that way because the soundproofing was like one way. So it's if you were in doing recording, you couldn't hear outside, but outside could hear everything you were doing. It was really weird. But the toilets in that place, just going through the corridor to get to the toilets, I always felt grim walking through there. And I always made sure if I walked into the place, I walked double time back out.
I do kind of have an interesting story. Not shadow people, right? Like I thought it was someone. I don't know if I've told this story. I know I've told you this story. I don't think I've ever told it on here before. But I'm pretty sure I'm not doing this particular job anymore, so it doesn't matter. I don't want to really. I was involved with training certain individuals on response tactics, and we were in a building that had been secured. We had working dogs. We had men with guns, some of which are law enforcement at that time. And the building's supposed to be clear, right? Like we're running games, we're running scenarios, and I'm on the upstairs and I'm behind one of the teams, and I'm just kind of walking around because at this point it's very slow going. It's very tedious. And I'm just kind of looking, and I see someone at the end of the hallway walk into a room. And I'm like, whoa, that's not good. And not only is it not good, we have dogs running in this building, like bike dogs. Like you're gonna get fucked up. And you know, I rip a couple of dudes off the back of the stack. We peel out, and I'm like, hey, this is what I saw. We're gonna do a little side thing here. Go room from room. Treat it, you know, it's real. Now all the doors are supposed to be unlocked in this particular facility. And one door was not, and that was the one door. And I was like, all right, well, you know, check side entrances. You watch the door, you know, watch the windows. We call outside someone to watch that. There is no window outside. Perfect. All right, well, we're gonna make entry. Let's find a key, and we bring the dog down now. Like this is a thing, right? And so we have the guys with eyes on. We pull back. We bring the dog up. And we're gonna let the dog work the whole hallway. There is no way out on the other side. Our first guy peels off the front. They stack up again. They issue the commands: dog, 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 come out. Blah blah blah. They let the dog go, and we get some of the guys with more experience up front, and we're gonna have them run it because this is real. Like there's somebody. I've seen someone, and we make entry on the locked door. No one's there, and the dog won't go in the room, which is. It was a Belgian Malinois. It was exceptionally trained. And it had been at the firing line all day. Like this it follows commands. It was dialed in. You know, they're not really dogs. They're just machines that look like a dog. And it wouldn't go in the room. Not only would it not go in the room, it was done for the rest of the day. Then the handlers understand that. Like, oh, I think he's just done. So we took him outside and we're like, ooh, that's spooky. We lock it all up and all the guys go, let's go downstairs. So, and all of us puckered up our assholes and went downstairs like, all right, that's enough of this weird shit. And so we're running downstairs and we're doing our last it's the end of the day. Like these are long days. It's like 20, 23 hour days. Like they're brutal, especially at this day is very long. I think we'd been there at that building 9 hours, you know, not to mention everything that had been happening since before the sun came up. And so we're stacking up to leave, and one of the guys reports seeing lights under one of the stairwells. The stairwell goes into an old civil defense shelter underground into tunnels, which we'd already cleared with dogs. And we knew where everything was. And we're like, hey, we can't lock someone in here. We do call up, like we're supposed to be on radio silence, but we do call up and everyone starts sounding off. And like, all right, well, you know, we can't just leave some homeless guy that snuck in when no one was looking, because shit like that has happened, you know. And they make entry, and the dog won't go in the tunnels, which is a first. Understand, this dog was working those tunnels 2 hours ago, right? 2 hours ago. And when they make entry on that first door where the guy saw the light, a lot of people just thought it was a light bulb. Well, there was no light bulb at that part of the tunnel. The light bulb was further down the stairs, which is the creepiest shit ever. Like, I don't know who designed it, because it's just concrete and it's got tunnels and like for steam and when they used to heat with radiators and things like that, and some communications, and they have like the bunker area, and it's cool. It's a really cool place. But yeah, so we end up sending the guys down there, and everyone, you can see it, like when they come up, they're all kind of pale, and they're like, what's going on? It's like, I don't know, it feels weird, right? And like some of the guys are like, I thought I saw something, and everyone's like, no, you didn't see shit. Like, we put the light on it and whatever. We're like, all right, guys, you leave. And then me and the other instructor, we're the last ones there. We're making sure everything's locked. We're doing our due diligence. And I'm telling him, because we've been to this building before. I said, I told you this fucking place was haunted. I told you this place was haunted. And he's like, man, you're full of shit. And as we walk by, the door that we had just made entry on, the door that we had locked and double checked as we are leaving the building, swings open to the tunnels. And that little fat bastard took off hauling ass. He's like, oh, you can close that. And I was like, oh, shit. And it's one of those locks, too, like one of the big deadbolts that you have to slide. It doesn't just close. So, and it was unlocked, which was bizarre. So I had a set of keys. I went and I locked it. I was like, I just locked this door. You know, these guys, we just checked all these doors. We've just done this. Yeah, man. That made everyone's asshole pucker. Yeah. I don't like that building.
No, it's strange. Sometimes I just wonder, what's the word for it? I can't remember. There's a word for empty places that make me feel, and they're like empty places that should be alive with people that make you feel uneasy. The same thing you get like in an empty shopping center or an empty hotel, that sort of thing.
And this is a place that would normally have
linear spaces. Is that it?
Yeah.
Linear spaces? Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny you said. It's actually why we were training in this building. But it's for anyway. Yeah, it's normally filled with people. This was the time when it wasn't, and they were actually going to destroy it and decommission it. And for whatever reason, the building just seems to have like a will. It continues to limp on. And when we were leaving, we were like, it's not leaving, but we're at the doors, because he's the guy I'm with, my partner. He's laughing his ass off at me because I'm like fast walking, like like a scared little girl. You know what I mean? Like I'm armed like this. That's makes zero sense, right? Maybe I didn't bring the holy water dipped bullets, right? And so he's waiting for me at the end, and he's talking to the cleaning ladies, and they're just kind of laughing at me walking, because again, I'm a large man and I'm fast walking with obvious fear in my face. So I'm sure that's a hilarious sight. And I have actual body camera footage of that too, that I was recording of the door of our conversation in the door opening. I have body footage of everything, because it's always running. Like when we do those things, I have a special setup that'll record. It's like 32 hours. Yeah, so he's talking to the cleaning ladies, and he's like, oh, you're going to like this. And so we start talking to them. They're like, oh yeah. I said, this is the first building we clean on the compound. We do it before dark, and we always do it together. And like normally, she said, normally we go to a building and you go to other ends of the building and the cleaning staff like meet in the middle. She's like, we don't do that here. We all clean together as a unit as we go through the hallways. And I'm like, why? And she just kind of looks, she's like, it's haunted. And I'm like, I believe that. I totally believe that. Yeah.
So right, what do you think it's? Do you believe in ghosts? I think that's the thing. I'd like to word it a different way, but I don't possess the English language to do so.
I don't believe like what do you mean by? I believe in that it's unknown phenomenon. Do I believe that it's dead Aunt Sally who used to clean here in the 44 when it was a happening, bustling place, and this is the best years of her life, so she's still cleaning? I would like to think that that's not happening. That would be terrible. I think it could be a confluence of things. Like, do I think that people leave energy behind places? Absolutely. Do I believe?
Do you think that's a conscious energy, as in like leaving a soul behind?
I don't. I think it's an impression. I think
I don't think we have the ability, because I believe there's something after we die.
Yes.
But I don't believe we have the ability or even the tools to stop that transition happening. I think that's where, when it's our time to go, we are very much ripped from this realm and placed in another realm.
I think so. I think so too. I think, I've heard interesting stories of people like having conversations with dead relatives, and like their dreams, or they like had an encounter, but it's always an encounter, right? It's not a prolonged exchange.
Thanks, Jennifer.
It's not like a prolonged encounter. It's an instance. What I believe is that we don't know necessarily what any of these things are, because here's the thing, like so when I was with those good, I hate that it sounds cryptic, but it has to, and I apologize for that. So I was in with these guys in this place doing that stuff. That building always holds an air of like oppression, right? Like you always feel small and you almost feel hunted. It's very unsettling. And when you know the history of the building, it's even more unsettling. It was very distinct. There's a distinct energy in air, and some of the, like, not all the dudes obviously, but some of the dudes who do things like that professionally, they seem to be pretty wired and tuned in, man. They're very alert. That, fight or flight's what keeps them alive. So they're very tuned into anything that is different, anything that this isn't set right. Why? It's like, I don't know. Well, then fuck that. Let's do something else. It's got kind of the number one rule in that playbook is if anything feels off, it's off. It 100% is. If it feels that way, it is that way. Just because you can't articulate it and you don't understand it doesn't mean it is not off or dangerous or bad. And do you have to be here? If the answer is no, go somewhere else. It's kind of like, I equate it to people. If you've ever been in a fight, in a bar where a fight broke out, or you've ever been in a fight, not like high school, but like a fight with another like grown man or a grown, like an individual, like this is going to kick off. This is going physical. You absolutely know. Everything in your body saying, listen, that your last moment to run was gone. You need to brace yourself. The people who get the hell beat out of them are the people like who suppress that and don't listen to that lizard brain, that hind brain, right? If you accept that hind brain, you're like, yep, this is going to go to hands. There's no way out of this. Start swinging, start throwing hard now, move fast, strike hard, hit hard, hit often. And I have other experiences, but I can't talk about those. But yeah, man, that building was weird. There were those guys that among themselves had seen things there because that wasn't their first time training at that facility. It's just weird, We went to other buildings on the compound and they're all fine, like no problem. It's that one, and it was used for. I know at one time in its life it was a Catholic church, like a long time ago. It was a Catholic church, and then it got bought by the government and used to do other things. And like they still had the tiles in the floor of like little swastikas and stuff like that. I think I sent you those.
Yeah, you sent me those. There's swastikas and iron crosses everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere on the old tile floors. Yeah, it was like they cover them up with rugs. It was very weird. And not only that, like the wrought iron fencing and stuff outside the building had them in it. Wow. And they just have these like wooden covers that are over them. Like I was like, what? And they're like, no, look here. And they like remove part of the cover and they're like, see? And you're just like, what the hell? You know what I mean? And they're like, yeah, that's why we keep it here.
I found something once when I was in Germany. I've been to Germany quite a few times. I was in I can't remember whether it was in Belgium. It's not Belgium. That's not Germany. Whether it was in Frankfurt or Dusseldorf. Anyway, it was a part of Germany, and I walked past it. It obviously got my conspiratorial head going because I just walked past this like small like craft shop, and I was looking. It was just a nothing shop. One of those one of those shops where you look at it, you go, right, how are you even in business? How is this turn enough money to keep this shop going. And I was just looking through the window, and there was a little bag in the window. And I wish, like, this was. I can't remember what I had. I didn't have my big SLR camera on me, and I don't think I had a decent camera phone then. I thought it must be a few years back. Mm-hmm. I was looking at the bag. I thought something looks odd about that bag, and when I looked closely at it, and we're talking like really tiny stitching, so the whole bag was like a sort of a rainbow sort of hippie thing. Mm-hmm. But if you looked really closely, the stitching was swastikas. It was stitched in a swastika pattern, and it wasn't like it's almost there. That's what it was, and it made me think. I wonder if there's these like little calling cards all over the place that you just like 100,000 people could walk past that window and not be fucked up enough to notice that. It just makes me wonder whether there's these little things like it's in the same way as I was quite shocked the other day. For anyone that knows, what's the best way to word this on YouTube? There was various symbols put out that the FBI used to identify what nasty people were into online, and two of the symbols were all over the soft furnishings in the pediatric orthopedic room in our hospital.
Yeah, get them used to it, man. Get them comfortable.
Weird. Like, just that on its own is strange, but like it's I find I couldn't, like, I remember because I took a picture of it, didn't I? And I put it up on our chat. And again, these are the things where if it's one of those things. There's two types of people know what those symbols are: crazy people and horrible people. It is very much if you know type of thing, isn't it?
It does seem to be that way. Like, I think I've said it a few times already, like, the reality is probably worse than we know. And in fact, it is worse than we know. A buddy of mine, we actually stole that saying from him from last weekend, guy I was flying with. We were talking about it, and he's like, the reality is always worse than you know. And I was like, that's great. I'm going to take that. Yeah. And it is. It 100% is every time. The reality is always worse than you know. Like this particular building that I'm at, like all I could ask is like, so nobody, like, these are just tiles. Nobody pulled up the tiles, and they're like, no, they put down rugs.
Yeah,
the wrought iron outside, you left that too.
Just let me bring this up because I believe Sid Vich. I'm going to say that swastika was sun symbol at least before Hitler stole that. I thought, isn't that reversed though?
It depends on the culture. Some cultures have it backwards. Some cultures have it facing his. It's an old symbol that he definitely appropriated. 100% right.
And that's fine, but it's also, I believe, illegal to make paraphernalia with swastikas on in Germany.
Probably.
I don't think you can legally have like outside of a museum, and even then I can't really remember. And I did go to a lot of museums. I can't remember seeing like the way it wasn't like walls of swastikas when you went into old buildings, just to make it look the part.
Oh, what was it? The comedian Bert Kreischer, one of his friends for his birthday, I forget the guy's name, bought him Hitler's teacup set. $30,000 in cash. That's what it cost.
Wow.
Yeah. So in America, those things sell for a lot. No, this building that had the swastikas, to reference that gentleman saying, or woman, I don't know. Everything's anonymous online, right? Mm-hmm. This building was built about the right time frame.
Built at the right time.
Hey, like whoever put that there, it wasn't a some symbol. Like people who built that particular part of the building that then got converted into another building that then got bought and owned and transformed as things happen in near critical areas. But the thing is, no one's done anything about it since.
No.
Yeah, it's just ignored. It's a freaky building, man. And I kind of hope to never go back. I was supposed to go back. I don't know. I keep saying I'm going to stop doing that stuff, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's every time you went in that building was always the same thing.
It was always creepy, yeah, because it was one building, so it's on the rotation, the training rotation that we're on. We're at that building for basically one day, and we're at a different building every day. Like there's field time, there's range time, there's no downtime. It's the one thing nobody has, right? It's always, get shit and roll. Don't get noticed, don't get caught. Don't bring attention. Things. And we have access to these different buildings, and we kind of keep it that way to keep away. I mean, looky-loos would be hard to get there, and nobody would understand what was going on. And part of it is not being noticed, right? Like to be able to mass a response to something and not alert everyone. That's a big key. But it was just particularly that building. Like we were in a lot of old buildings. We a lot of things, and just that building, man. That building, 100, like all the floors. It's freaky. It's just a freaky place. It genuinely is. Like, and you could see like nobody there wants to admit it because nobody there wants to be like a wuss or tap out or like, oh, I got it. Because everybody there's over the top alpha in charge. I'm this guy that blah blah blah. And so when you see and part of it makes that building great for this kind of training, because it's like the more time you spend in this building, the more uncomfortable you get. It just compounds. Like the building does not want you there at all. It didn't want to do anything with, like, if it had a personality and a will, it wanted us to get the hell out.
Is it the building or is it the area? And that's something that always sticks with me is, we spoke before about these little labs tucked away, in the middle of nowhere in the US. And I mean, realistically, could be anywhere. They could put them anywhere. So is there a reason to put them where they are, like on the land?
I wondered that. Or maybe
we followed things like ley lines and stuff like that, for years. We even talk about the like pyramids, where pyramids are structured when you draw a line around them, around the earth. It makes me think that there might be energy points in various places.
I could definitely get behind that. And if that's the case, we probably build there inadvertently. Do you think they're drawn there and they don't even know why? Yeah, I could definitely see that. Instead of it being intentional, being like, I don't know why we're doing this, but we're doing this.
I think that depends how deep you want to go with, like I say, especially what was took on with when you have the Nazis, which was so soaked in a cult ritual of things,
a little bit,
and then they come over to the US through Project Paperclip, bring in like we always put under the notes of science, but what else was there? Anything else that came along with it was science?
And I can break this down. Living near a Paperclip site where a bunch were housed, we bring 600 scientists. There were 1,600 overall. 1,000 of them went into the intelligence community in the United States.
Yeah.
In fact, the CIA, as we now know, was formed by the agents that we had brought over, 1,000 of them from then. And as we now know from released documentation, the Nazis who were in charge, I mean, they all were field officers, right? The field officers are the ones who are going to run through the ranks, because they're not actually agents, right? They're officers.
Yeah.
They'll run through the ranks. So if you think about it, the Central Intelligence community being involved in the assassination of JFK was then orchestrated and okayed by former Nazis.
Yeah, it's not.
Who were all sitting ideal. And they got to lay the foundation of the culture of the United States in intelligence agency. They were the ones who set the building blocks in place.
I really think that was a turning point, like a global turning point. The JFK assassination. Yeah, that was I think lots of where we've ended up right now. And I'm sure, like, don't get me wrong, there's always a point you can put the marker further back, the more you look into things, you could find another thread that take you somewhere back. But that's when you end up with the crazy conspiracy memes with people with string and everything behind them. But I think there's a point where you've got to go, right, well, in recent livable memory from people that are alive and around now, that's the spot. That's where you put the dart in the board.
I zoned out. Sorry. What's going on?
No,
I could try and cover it up, but I can't. It just would not stop.
Yeah. No, where the JFK assassination is like, I think that's where we've took a branch, and we're on that timeline now, and it's not. I don't think it's an ideal timeline for anybody.
Yeah, everything is what you make it, man. Like, you made a joke about me doing my fun weekend stuff, which every weekend is fun. Life's what you make it. People we get too caught up in things that we cannot affect. Right? People get way too caught up in things that they cannot affect. You do what you can when you can. Other than that, why are you holding on to it? Well, I'm worried about. All right, if you're worried, make preparation. If you're worried, make preparation for whatever it is. Have you made preparation? Yeah, let it go.
Yeah,
it's done now. Like, that's big things. Grid's gonna go down, or there's a spy balloon. Are they looking at my phone? Probably not.
No,
it's someone else's problem. You know what I mean? Like, and it's everything seems to collapse around. You know what I mean? Here's the thing. Like, there was literally an island where elite people went to do horrible things to definitely underage people.
Yeah,
the government has a list of everyone who's been to that island. You're never going to see it
ever. No,
but you can see a former sitting president's tax return that took 5 years to get. Like, it's not. It doesn't even matter what side of the political fence you're on. That should just be ridiculous.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons a lot of this stuff is politicized. Is so it's if you can politicize everything, that means there's always a team fighting against another team. Because the last thing you want is for everybody to go, oh yeah, we need to look into this. Just if everyone just stops for 2 seconds, we just need to look at this, and then we can carry on watching Strictly Come Dancing. But just for now, we do this. But you can't you can't have that. No. It's never going to happen. The only other thing, and I've took quite a lot of solace from this lately, and it's because obviously we're quite off topic now, but here we are.
I just thinking that.
It's realistically, I'm going with, if it hadn't been for the shadowy hands on what we see in shadows, it's kind of a nebulous title anyway. There's wiggle room, and we might be able to tie it back to occultism. I've dove. I was deep into the 2012 one. Yeah, I was like deep into it. Yeah, you can have a shout out there, Dave. I was deep into the 2012 thing. Like I was. Even at the time as well. Even I was reading the Bible Code at the time. Do you remember when the Bible Code book came out? Yeah, I thought that was dead interesting too. So I was right in line for the 2012 stuff. And I got myself to the point in 2000, 2009, 2010 as the essentially the YouTube grifters were really getting rolling on like flooding the using the 2012 end of the world thing as like a meal ticket to constantly do shows about. And I did. Like I genuinely believed that was the one. That's of all the conspiracy theories, this is the one that's going to come round. Not for a split second did I think that it doesn't make sense to have a calendar that's going to have a hard stop be a circle. No, you do it. It makes no sense. Why not just make it a plaque? If it's got a hard stop at one end, why make it a circle so it starts again when you get to the end of it? But the thing I kind of learned from that, and I forgot, and I've just remembered, is that no matter what's happened and what conspiracy theories, and I will give conspiracy theories their due over the past 2 to 3 years, we are batting pretty high averages at the minute. But the conspiracy fact is never quite as bad as the conspiracy theory, no matter how bad the conspiracy theory is.
Or that's just what we find out.
Maybe I think it's mainly because of human imagination.
I don't know, man.
I think we put a lot of imagination into these things.
We do.
Well.
We do. I think some of the connections made by conspiracy theories are at like here's the thing, man. I find a new conspiracy theory. I'll watch all that stuff on it because I think it's fun. And I think there's nuggets of truth that something sent someone on this path, right? So it can be fun, but I always feel like the reality seems to be worse. Like there's literally a resort where all men get together in Northern California, and they're all leaders of industry and of the world, and they burn a child.
Bohemian Grove is wild.
Like that's a real
thing.
Yeah, it's a real thing. That's a real place. Like, oh, it's just guys blowing off steam. As they burn a child, that's how you start the party.
As they burn an effigy in front of a giant owl.
Yeah, I have a standing guys' night with me and some of my friends that we all moved into the same neighborhood, and it's all the wives, kids understand. Like that's all the dads, husbands, whatever. We all get together. That's our thing. We don't. I mean, maybe that's just us. Maybe we're not partying hard enough, but we don't burn a child effigy to an owl god. Like it's never once even come up in discussion.
You guys clearly aren't partying. You clearly aren't partying hard enough. But
apparently.
But this is the thing, like you would, if these rituals still go on, and this kind of crowbars us back into like occult ritualism and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And even back in with the Aleister Crowley stuff as well. Yeah. People don't continue to do stuff unless they get results.
Crazy people do.
Crazy people do, but
determined people.
Crazy people and determined people do, but I also don't believe that all of the satellite people that were around Crowley, which was essentially the entertainment industry of the day, the same as like the entertainment industry of today revolves around Marina Abramovich. I don't believe all those people. I think you would get ones that fall off, ones that go, oh, no, this is fucking bullshit, isn't it? Because they're too busy. They're too busy making money, being rich, and doing fun stuff. So why would they do stuff that doesn't give them something back? There must be a reward there.
It's funny. I've wondered that myself. I've had this thought. I was like, it's somebody at some point. Like if they're not getting something out of it, this is going to get brought up the craziest thing is that it never gets brought up in interviews. No one talks about it. Mm-hmm. You got all these incredibly famous people going to this. It's an art dinner. It's made with, different bodily fluids in the effigy of a child as you cut it up and eat it. What's going on?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like what's going on? And like the thing I also get is how many people are there because it's one of the things you have to do. Like with certain jobs that have a political nature, there are things you have to do. You have to go to this event. You have to go to whatever. You have to give money. These are all it's just part of it.
Mm.
Is being a celebrity that you just have to go to shit like this. The thing that I actually saw this on TikTok, which I don't know, take it or leave it. It was a chick called Woa Vicky, who I have no idea who she was until that moment. Apparently she's like in LA and she's, I guess she has some kind of level of stardom. I can't personally figure it out. It's not my whatever. I still don't really know what she does. I didn't look her up. But anyway, she's going to some other celebrity's party that I've never heard of. Probably, I hate to say younger people, but maybe they would. Who knows? Man, I felt bad right there.
We're in a strange place now. We are not young, but not old.
Not old either. Yeah, it's like, oh, why do I feel like I'm getting mule kicked?
Yeah, it's like nobody wants to hang out with you, but you can't demand respect either. It's just
exactly like, oh, that I got to commit to being old. Yeah, it's one of those things. But so she's like going to this Hollywood party, and they have documentation, which I guess makes sense. Like these Hollywood parties, they lock up your phone, and you have to sign a waiver that whatever happens here, you're not going to talk about. I get that. I genuinely get that. And she starts reading it, and she's like, it has to be dotted in blood. And she's like reading about what it is. And she's like, no, I ain't getting into this devil worship soul stuff. She's like, I don't care. And I'm like, what? And she starts talking about the contract and whatever it was. And it's kind of hard to follow her. But anyway, whatever was on it scared the hell out of her.
It's definitely worth noting that the people that seem to be into this occult ritual sort of stuff, they tend to be very powerful and very rich.
Oh yeah.
So it comes with rewards. The only question would be is, are the rewards coming from other people that are also in the same club, or are they coming through that club because there is connections there with something darker? That's the only thing to think about there. Is it just, well, you're in my club, so yeah, of course, here's the go and audition for this movie role. You'd be great in this production. Or is it, sign your name on this piece of paper, you give the owl god your soul, and he will grant you all your wishes?
Maybe. I don't know. I don't travel in any of those circles. I'll never travel. Like any celebrity. Oh, wrong hand. Celebrity I've ever met is always very D-list celebrities in roundabout ways. So they clearly didn't sell their soul to anyone. If they did, they didn't get a very good deal. But you're right. It does seem that powerful people, like there's footage you can find of Bill Clinton. You probably have to find it on Rumble, YouTube. It does not make it easy to find things anymore.
Do you know what? I couldn't believe the other day, because if any of the conspiracy theories that I would feel would be like really harmless at the minute, it would be like the mud flood, like Tartarian, like stuff. Because you're essentially looking for history, really. It's just somebody giving an alternate version of history, because it was all the World's Fair stuff I was looking for. I could find fuck all on this website. Fuck all.
I ran into that as well. Yeah, it's something. Where was I going? I forget. Oh well.
Bill Clinton.
What's that?
Bill Clinton.
Oh yeah. So he's on the record talking about his wife, Hillary, doing like mediumship, and she used to talk to like the dead Eleanor Roosevelt in the White House, and she would like hold seances and shit. Like he's talking about it like a thing. She was always into that, and by all accounts, she is. Especially if you get into the Hillary and Podesta emails and all that jazz.
Yeah, I mean, some of that stuff's crazy. That stuff is, regardless of what it's about or why it's there. They're definitely talking in code. There is and that's in a way that's fine if they if it is government people talk about stuff that isn't for everybody to know. I'm sure there is plenty of code used.
Yeah, you wouldn't do it in that kind of email text though. If they have other secure means of government communication. They have secure phones that are
not Hillary.
Allegedly,
she's got her own
fully
server.
And it wasn't even encrypted, bro. It wasn't encrypted. It wasn't secure. Like there's certain, like it was just like she got it off of Amazon and put it in her. Like you're just like, oh my god.
Doesn't it make you think when you get that, and the obviously I'm sure with lots of these people being all these people in the chat, they will know of who's your English guy, the hacker that hacked NASA. What's his name? Somebody stick it up in the chat. English guy hacked NASA. He basically just used a program which basically just ran stock passwords, for to log into computers. And it was like they hadn't even changed the password on these things.
I believe that.
That's how he got in. And like he said, he was But he said he was speaking to other people that were doing this as well. Like he was speaking to like Russian people and Chinese people and people from all over the world that were hacking in to have a little sniff around NASA. And he just happened to be caught that particular day. Gary McKinnon, thank you very much, Gustav. You are a Gustav man.
Wow.
And yeah, what?
I said he's on it.
Yeah, he is. He beat the race. There's 2 more Garys underneath him. Gary's such a boring name, isn't it? Imagine living your life being a Gary.
My stepdad's name was Gary.
Oh, sorry, Gary. Don't shout at me.
What?
Oh God, I've just derailed myself. It just makes you wonder, like, if we look at how much of the front of what we see, you know, the stuff we think is, this is going to be, like, this is all the top secret stuff, like the likes of NASA, which he was getting into. How much of it's just the fucking washboards in front of everything? There's no passwords and stuff on it, because realistically, the good stuff's not there.
It's probably at the NSA. So I told you about my my NSA connection, right?
No, don't think so. Maybe.
I thought I did. The guy's a very good friend of mine. His dad was a Air Force officer, and he was in communications. Got out of the Air Force, went to the NSA for a while because he had all the appropriate clearances, and they were building in networks and whatever it was that he did, they were doing, and they brought him in as a contractor. And so he got to see apparently all kinds of information.
Mm-hmm.
And my buddy's like, his dad was a very religious, devout guy. They went, they were Seventh-day Adventists, so they went every Saturday. And way into it, like didn't eat meat, all that jazz. He said after his dad took the job there, all of a sudden they stopped going to church, started eating meat. Like everything changed. He's like, everything changed. And his dad eventually left that job and went to pursue yet another career. And he had told his like adult son later on, he's like, and just like they were having beers and it was like a general conversation. He's like, when I worked at the NSA, I saw documentation that things from outside our reality and potentially planet like visit here, and they're aware of it and they're monitoring it. And he's like, well, what do you mean? His dad just kind of shook his head and was like, I don't know, and just kind of walked away. He said it changed. So like changed, like dude was just like he had to, like after years he had to tell someone, and when he did tell him, he didn't tell him everything. And I was just like, oh man. He's like, what? He's like, that's not shit my dad would say. And my buddy was also in the Air Force in communications as well, and so was his wife. His wife was an officer, and I think he was an officer as well. But so it was interesting. Like we were going to tacos one night. And he just randomly throws that on me because he knows I do these things. And I'm like, what? Yeah, have you never told me this sooner? He's like, well, I don't have anything else to go with it. He's like, I think he actually listened to one of our podcasts talking about stuff, Lee, and that's why he told me. And
see, that's like, I think probably the most plausible theory for me from all of this, like all of the from Blue Book to whatever the Men in Black are, because I believe the idea that we have a covert organization that goes around checking these things out and saying to people, look, you don't talk about this, okay? That makes total sense to me.
Oh yeah.
I don't think they're aliens. I don't think they're got supernatural powers. I don't even think they've got those shooty things that make your memory disappear. I don't think Will Smith's in them.
Has he slapped one?
Just
as long as they don't talk about his wife, I guess.
Wouldn't it be that amazing if that's how he made people forget?
Just gotta hit him in the face hard enough, and they'll forget. What an amazing technique!
That's why Chris Rock looked so confused. He was like, "What am I doing here? Why am I here? Did I just get slapped?"
Dude, he showed unbelievable control. You could see him ball that fist up, and he just let it go. He's like, "I'm on stage. I can't do this." Yeah, and I was like, "That's a man in command of himself." It was impressive.
Not like Will, who's a man who's in command, or who's being commanded, I should say.
Yeah, it's You know, like, it's funny, you can see people when they fly into rages or whatever, and they get loud, they get loud, they get boisterous. Like, that's always the person never to really, like, the person who's not in command of themselves. It's not a person to worry about.
Yeah.
You got to worry about the person who's gritting and smiling and would love to say or do more, but they're not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's going to be a repercussion. Like, that's you know what I mean? Like, Chris Rock hasn't done anything yet. You know, doesn't mean he's not going to.
It's well,
you know,
he's probably too busy trying to rescue his career after the Spiral film he did. But what was I going to say? So I'm fully down with the idea that there's like Men in Black and there's government agencies that are monitoring these things, because I think that happened. I'm absolutely convinced that like the UFOs is in the lights in the skies people see. I think people are seeing lights in the skies. I don't believe they're vehicles, or not vehicles in the nuts and bolts, metal kind. What we see, and that's why I think the likes of the Tic Tac and stuff like that. I genuinely think that's it's propaganda. It's just misinformation that's been put out by the government just to get people back on the train. Like, look, they're aliens, yeah. They're just coming from light years away, and they're in big metal spaceships, and it's just to get that pop culture alien story back on the table. In truth, I don't think anyone truly knows what's going on.
You know, I think you're onto something serious about that, because like I think the Skinwalker Ranch TV show, which is interesting and ridiculous all in the same point. It's not made for people who are.
It's such a shame. It's how it's done. I'd love to know just what they're doing. You know, I don't need the cuts. You know, I always look at them as like it's typical American reality TV cuts where it says, but something's going to happen, and then you cut back after the adverts to exactly the same point and have to relive that moment again before nothing happens.
Yeah, and I think that's designed. Like, it is designed not for people who are into the subject, but people who don't know anything about the subject.
Yeah,
that's the critique of it, because I know people who watch that show and love it, and they don't follow the subject. If anything, that show has gotten them interested in the subject. That show got them to read the book. That book led to Missing 411 books. That book now leads them like, I'm not going to the woods. You know, like, yeah. You know, it's funny story to go along with that. My wife and I used to, before we had a horde of children, we used to like backpacking and camping, and I forget which anniversary it was, because we weren't married long, maybe 5 years at this point. We went backpacking way out in the woods, and just kind of peaceful out on the AT, and it was nice. It wasn't long, it wasn't far, and then we spent like, I don't know, a week and a half. Went back, and this was like something we did. Like, even when she was pregnant with our first child, she was 6 or 7 months, dude, we were still backpacking. I just carried all her shit as well as mine. And we went to like a work function, and of course it was like an outdoorsy, let's do crazy shit thing. But yeah, like that was our thing. And then when I had heard about Missing 411 randomly, right? Like, I wasn't into that topic, and I'd found out about it from I'd found out about from, was it Coast to Coast? Yeah. And I was like, well, that sounds interesting. So I got the books and I read the books. And then I was like, yeah, we're not going to the woods until all my kids are above X age, you know. And even then, here's a firearm, here's how to use it, here's your, like, now, like when I roll out or we go, everybody's got a personal emergency locator beacon. Like, I can find everyone. We're going to GPS triangulate. Don't leave my sight. If you do, you know, like, sit still, I'll find you. And my wife and I are always armed. It definitely, like, the woods used to be a very comfortable place, and maybe too comfortable. Maybe that put a bit of reality into it, you know, for me, that you need to stay on guard. But I don't know. It makes me wonder what they do know and what they don't know, and if they really know anything more than we do.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Do they really? Maybe they have 2 pieces of information, but it doesn't answer any more questions. Like, so you're speaking of Skinwalker Ranch. Kind of went off on a tangent. I apologize. But like Travis Taylor, who I like, His interview with George Knapp, I find, gives way more information than any of the series of the actual TV shows. He's talking about more really what they're doing and happenings that he doesn't even want to talk about because they make him uncomfortable. Like the hitchhiker phenomenon, things that are going on in his house that he originally thought this was all nonsense and we would figure it out. Now he's burned with radiation. He had to deal with radiation sickness and probably a bit of a cancer scare, hair loss, weight loss, organ deterioration. That the guy standing next to him didn't have to deal with. So it's directed radiation.
Mm.
What? Yeah, there's a lot of bizarre things that he can talk about, and the other people, when you see them interviewed, they talk about, which I think that there's more clues in that than anything else. There's a reason that the owner, Brandon Frugal, likes to try and stay away from it. He doesn't want any of that shit following him home. He just wants the answers, which I got to be honest, if I was him, I'd be doing exactly the same thing. I don't go there more than twice a year. I'm only there for 20 minutes.
I mean, I'd love to know what the checks and balance sheet is for that show. Like, it obviously makes the network money, so because otherwise he wouldn't air it. So how much of Fugal's money is actually going into it? Is he more of a character than an investor? It's like because that would be where is he making money from doing it? That's the thing, because Bigelow wasn't making money from doing the Skinwalker Ranch stuff. He was actively spending money with his research team there. I can't work out what that. And the reason I can't work out with Fugal is because there was no revenue stream for Bigelow, whereas Fugal has a revenue stream in a television show.
Yeah, well, there was Bigelow did get the $22 million, which the bulk of it was spent there. But again, $22 million on a research project isn't a lot of money.
Huge.
It's no. I mean, the reality is, like, if you do an environmental study, like, I guarantee they've done an environmental study of that area, and it's like 400 acres. That's probably $250,000 in environmental study. In all seriousness, geologic surveys, there's another $100,000. The money goes fast.
Yeah. Then you've got full-time staff there as well. Full-time staff.
Full-time security.
If you've got full-time staff and security there, you are you're paying those people to be there and do their jobs. You are paying for them to travel to and from work. You're paying for them to go home. You're paying for them to eat and survive while they're there.
No, it costs. I'm sure he's making money. I think maybe he's all of those things. So, like, Brandon Fugal's an interesting guy when you look into him and see that he was a board member on an archaeological fund foundation. It's kind of strange, and they were into weird stuff from what I can understand. I just think it's another dude with money who's into it, and he's putting it in, and he also found a way, because he's a successful businessman. He found a way to also make some money, right?
Yeah.
And clearly, if Travis Taylor's there, the government is still involved.
Yeah. I like him.
I do too. Did you ever see his TED Talk on consciousness?
Yeah, I watched part of it. I didn't watch it all. I had to go out. But
it's a quantum phenomenon.
Yeah,
which means that if the paranormal is somehow quantum based, the entanglement of the two explains the hitchhiker effect.
Yeah, and just the crossover in general.
Yeah, he's a bright guy. He's a bright guy with a lot of NDAs, and who's worked and had a lot of clearances, and he's worked at a lot of very high end places. He's a very connected guy. But he's a legit scientist. It's interesting, man. Like, so again, the shadow people. So Skinwalker Ranch, they've seen shadow people there. The government officials had seen that. It's interesting because they don't seem to be bound by anywhere or anything. Maybe they themselves are, 1 or 2 frequencies above or below us. That's why it's imperceptible, except for moments, just fleeting moments when your brain's still collecting everything in the field. And maybe that's why cameras are able to grab it. They're collecting more actual information than our eyes do.
Boom. Fugal's religion is loves aliens. In fact, there was into it. Is he a Scientologist?
He's a Mormon.
Obviously Mormon, is he?
Yeah.
That's a shame. I thought we were going Scientology.
Well, it's interesting because Mormons are heavy in the intelligence field.
Are they? I have no idea.
Yes. One, they're true believers, right? They're cultivated at a young age. Their background checks are very easy after they're college educated, right? So like NSA, CIA, whatever DIA, whatever intelligence, like once they get there, background clearances can be
like black pants and white shirts.
Yeah, they love that. So, and they're believers, right? Like you can tell them this is for the greater good, and I can get on board with that. You know, we have to do harm, but it's for the greater good. Like you need a believer, you need something. Yeah, you want someone who's trained not to ask questions, who's trained to go along with it, and people who are heavily indoctrinated by structured religions like that tend to be that way. And if they're Mormon, they're not drinking, they're not doing drugs, they're living a clean life, generally, and that makes background checks easy. It makes everything easy. And then, like any culture, if there's a lot of Mormons from the get-go in something, they're probably going to get more of them, right? It's when I found that out, I was like, "Are you serious?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, there's a lot of Mormons in the intelligence community."
Yeah, it's really interesting. I had no idea. Like you say, it makes sense. I'm just looking at the chat here. I'm going to address Mr. Reckless here, who's the paranormal has been studied by real scientists. There is no evidence of such nonsense, and he also takes umbrage in us connecting shadow people with UFOs. But like I'm not jumping on the guy here.
Yeah.
It was an interesting thing to bring up because like lots of the reports of shadow people in people's rooms are very similar to abduction experiences.
Yeah,
like, very similar to abduction experiences. Some of them have even the shadow people have. There's been abduction stories where a shadow person has come in and led somebody away, and then that shadow person morphed into an alien gray, like a standard, and then that person went on to have like the textbook abduction experience. So that I think what my problem is, it's probably a bad problem to have here. And obviously, like this show is not a alien show. It's never going to be an alien show. It's just going to be a stuff, an interesting stuff show. There is no science behind UFOs yet.
No.
There is lights in the sky, and there is no credible evidence that they are aliens. There is no credible evidence they are actual ships. We have hearsay and rumor, and what it is modern day folklore right now. And don't get me wrong, I mean that in the best possible way, because I fucking believe something's happening. I believe there is something extra outside the realms of what we perceive as reality.
Yeah.
But to say we've got this all worked out, we know, or at least like that's supernatural, this is UFOs, this is fact, that's fiction. The evidence is not there to do that at all.
Yeah, and like, I guess
in fact, I think it stifles. I think it stifles it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I see where they're coming from.
I get it.
Again, I get it too. But the thing is, it's like they've studied the paranormal. It doesn't exist. What aspect of the paranormal? Because it's obviously not normal. So that's a huge category. And science to write off everything isn't very science. That's belief, which interestingly enough is what science has turned into in the past 20 years. It's its own cult. Trust the science. Scientists know. They're just people who've been to school a little bit longer, maybe, than you or I. And are they trying to keep funding going for what they want? Are they truly exploring what they want to explore? Like, what aspect did they take? What was the method? Whatever. I get it. Dude's into UFOs, not paranormal. No problem.
But that's I mean, the same person. They said UFOs are just unidentified objects, not alien spaceships. Then that's fine if that's
true.
But but it also there's no what is it then?
I don't think they're alien spacecraft.
I don't think they're alien spacecraft. I don't think there are spacecraft either.
Mm-mm.
I don't think they're crafts at all. It could be weather phenomena for all we know.
What is it? Jeremy Corbell did the podcast, and they were talking with the Hilo pilot who was also into it, and they were talking about the different things that have been witnessed, the different shapes and oddities. Whether they're cubes or triangles or these spheroid or tic-tac type, silver cylindrical shapes. There seems to be those 4 that you see regularly, and you're talking like unidentified object. Okay, those are unidentified. They're objects. They're in the air. People are like, well, they're just misidentified drones, and the pilots don't know what they're talking about. When I hear that, it tells me these people don't know who pilots are, and they've never met one. And I don't mean an airline pilot. I mean like a fighter pilot. What it takes to be a fighter pilot. Let alone like Fravor, who's a commander. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. I suggest going and making friends with a fighter pilot if you can find one that wants to be your friend, and be friendly for a while, and then ask them questions about like that. And he'll tell you, a commander of his own squadron is somebody you take seriously, and he's not full shit.
We see what I thought, because I remember having this out with I think maybe it was Rich on Ollie's show that was saying remember that shiny sort of like triangle-y shaped thing that with the one of the pilots took a picture of it from the cockpit of a jet.
Yeah.
And people were trying to say it was, I think your man, who was the video game designer, was the first one to say that it was a Batman balloon.
Yeah.
Because he'd found a Batman balloon that was the same size.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Now, imagine the shutter speed on the camera you would need for a fighter jet to be close enough to a balloon, which is what, football sized. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Imagine how close they would be to take a photograph of it, and how quick the shutter speed would be to get a picture of it before it went past. That's impossible. It's an impossible, even to see it. It's an impossible moment. It was clearly something that was not just a balloon flying up past a jet.
Yeah, I don't know.
How quick's a fighter jet going? What, 600, 700, 800 miles an hour?
Yeah, beyond I know they can break the sound barrier. I think it depends on the jet too.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, they're very fast. They're very fast.
Mm-hmm.
And the technology keeps getting upgraded, and that was something interesting that's made, is that like as the technology gets better, they're able to see these things on radar more, and as they're getting pinged on radar more, they start showing up visually. It's like they know they've been seen.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, which is interesting. Which I think bleeds into consciousness. What is consciousness? How loud are you thinking?
Yeah,
you know what I mean. It's interesting. I find it all interesting. If someone else doesn't, that's okay, man. We can all be different. That's fine. These shows probably won't be for you. That's okay. Yeah. I don't know. Like there's a lot of lazy debunking. You know what I mean? It's kind of like saying that a long distance shooter, someone say, "Hey man, I finally, got a round on paper at 1,200 yards," and they show you the paper and it's like signed, and you're like, "Yeah, well, you know what? You grab a piece of paper and punch a hole in it with a pencil and sign." It's like, "Me too." What? Just because you can mimic something doesn't mean that's what happened. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I can find something that looks this. I could do something similar, but that doesn't mean that's what it is. It just means that I can replicate it. Okay. Doesn't mean it's fake. Doesn't mean it's not genuine. It just means I'm capable of doing something that looks the same. That's always kind of where I fall on it. I've looked at, lots of things in the sky with night vision. So I have a lot of hours locked on that. And I've definitely seen weird shit. You definitely see weird stuff when you see it in the sky. People are like, well, it's a satellite. Satellites don't stop and make right angles. as far as that video clip, there has to be way more than that.
Yeah, of course it does.
Yeah, that's what I would be interested in. And when you film through night vision, it does tend to look like shit.
And this is one of the reasons why I lean into what we're being told, and I don't even blame because I really enjoy that Jeremy Corbell podcast. I think he gets a hard time, especially on YouTube, from the YouTube UFO heroes. But I believe he's genuinely passionate about what he's doing. I think he genuinely believes the people that are in touch with him. Let's not forget that we already know that the US military literally sent a man insane because they fed him false information about UFOs. So it wouldn't be it wouldn't be stupid. I mean, even down to it's like To the Stars Academy and Tom DeLonge. Like Tom DeLonge was meeting people that in like diners to sit down and talk about this stuff. He was being led along. Like he was being used to promote something, and they found a useful idiot in Tom DeLonge, I believe.
I like the interviews with Tom DeLonge that aren't around that, like the side and peripheral interviews he's done with people, and that subject comes up. He does way better. He did terrible.
Yeah, he did. That was awful. Yeah. But the thing is with what they're putting out, I think they're being used to do it, and it's even if you're getting like the triangle footage, for instance, were the triangles, weren't the triangles? Don't know. I think that podcast was great actually when he said it doesn't matter, if they're unidentified objects that are buzzing US Navy ships, then that's the important thing, not what shape they are. But if they're genuine UFOs, but where would I take it people on naval vessels can have cameras and phones. So where's that leak coming out? It's what we're given is, because realistically, that's what if you remember, that's what the radar was. It was filmed from a radar operator's phone. So if that can leak out, why not more? It always seems to be something that is interesting enough that people that know what they're talking about can say to us, this is really interesting if you know what you're talking about, but not interesting enough that we can tell with our own eyes. It's perfect. It like, if you wanted a psyop, it's perfect for it.
Oh yeah. That's like the thing too. Like I could see like someone in the military saying, listen, we got Commander Fravor. He was the commander of X Squad, or, Black Aces. He was all these things. He's an Annapolis graduate. He's an officer. Let's send him out there, because inside that world, the man's infinitely credible. In the outside world, no one understands what any of that means. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't track with them. And again, I'm inherently distrustful of most things put out by the media. Like if they're putting that out and the particular verbiage they use, because they're very careful. They're always very careful never to lean towards, extraterrestrial. But you always hear them drop the interdimensional, just kind of here and there, and they roll on with it. It's just peppering. It feels more like they're just softly continuing to see, just to spoon feed information to the public in such a way not to make people lose their minds. Because people panic over nothing. So
just while we're wrapping, if we start wrapping this show up, that is a show I want to do actually, and I think you'd be. I want to give you warning for it, because I think you'd be a good person to have some viewpoints on it. Is and it is an out there theory, and that's I'm not trying to pretend that Musty Audio isn't anything more than having out there conversations about stuff.
That's what we do.
Yeah. What if it's preparing us?
I've thought that.
What if it's preparing us for war, as in like, and I don't know, I'm not saying like interplanetary, maybe it's like an interdimensional, or my personal favorite, maybe it's war with something else that's already here, another predator race that's higher up the food chain than we are, but that is technologically advanced enough to live alongside us without us knowing it's there.
That'd be a problem that we're going to lose.
And yeah, I think that'd be a good show to, especially if we start from like the last couple of years and work forward from the disclosure story forwards.
That'd be a fun,
good show.
Fun intellectual experiment.
Yeah. Like what steps would be taken to prepare the world if we were facing War of the Worlds?
You'd have to get into the public consciousness that, one, that they exist, two, that they're not friendly. Yeah. You have to build an enemy narrative. Wouldn't be hard because they're not human.
We're not human, and we're really good. Like we've been conditioned to we've been conditioned to other people very quickly. Yeah, especially the last 2 years, Cold War. You go back in time, whenever there's been a sorry.
Get a bidet.
Almost.
Get a bidet. Yeah,
almost.
Gotta be ahead of it. Gotta be ahead of it.
I just give up on toilet paper at that point. Toilet paper is gone. There we go. We go with the left hand. We eat with the right.
You know, little do we know that the cleaner the asshole, the more the aliens want you. It's all the people who forsake it. They're going to be the ones to inherit the earth. All the rest of us using TP, or those few of us who still have bidets in Western culture, we're doomed.
Quote of the show is, the dirtier the asshole, the more the aliens want you.
The cleaner the asshole, the more they want you.
Oh, Mr. Reckless just got a free shout. I didn't mean to press that one. But yeah, no, right. That's been a fun show. We did talk about shadow people some. We talked about Nazis some. We talked about stuff some. It was a nebulous title for a nebulous topic, because there is another show. I want to do a follow-up show on shadow people. There's been a guy that's got in touch with me that he's been on Ollie's show before, I believe. And he's got some stuff to talk about. When I was talking to him, I said to him in the messages, I haven't got back to him yet, but I've been like super busy. But I said to him, it sounded like a follow-up show. It sounded, this to me felt like a show, but nattering about stuff. If he's going to come in and give like his view on what they are and why they are, why he has such a relationship with them, I think it feels like a follow-up show. So cool. I think that's what we're going to do. Thank you everybody for sticking about. Like, share, and subscribe. I always forget to do that stuff. There's a Patreon. Go do the Patreon thing. Share the podcast. YouTube. What is it now? Is it still a podcast if it's on YouTube, or has it changed?
As long as you transitioned. As long as you're loading it up to Spotify.
Yeah, it's still a podcast. I'm going to keep saying podcast. I'm used to saying podcast.
Until poor Ollie's channel gets totally booted because of us. Because we were really good tonight.
We were. I think that's we're right there. We're right on the edge of normalcy. It should be fine.
We were very tame.
Other than that, stay good, and we will see you later on. Ciao. I should have been ready to end this better.